Oh, it is. It is an extra yard here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, part of 3 yards per carry. I am Alex Donno. I'm riding solo today. Going to have a quick update on some of the things going on and some of the things being said at the NFL Scouting Combine. You know, you've gotten media availability yesterday and today from Chris Grier, the general manager, and head coach Mike McDaniel. And I encourage you guys, if you're in here watching us live at 3:58 p.m., I came on 2 minutes early because sometimes, man, when I'm going from stream to stream, show to show, I just get anxious. Like, I can't wait. Like, I was looking at my watch, I'm like 3:57. I can't wait 3 more minutes to go on. So I hit the go live button. Here we are. If you happen to be watching us live on 5 Reasons Sports YouTube at now 3:59 p.m. here on Wednesday, make sure you partake in the live chat. The live chat is open. And if you happen to be watching later on, hello and kudos to you too. And if you happen to be listening later on, because we do every episode of the Extra Yard gets updated on the 3 yards per carry podcast feed. And make sure you're supporting all of the amazing episodes at 3 yards per carry, because Alfredo, Simon, and Chris do an incredible job. So, you know, one of the most prevalent topics that came up with both Grier, the GM, and McDaniel, the head coach, is the 5th-year option for Miami Dolphins starting quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, because the Dolphins have a May 1st deadline to pick up that 5th-year option for Tua. And I've said it multiple times here on these airwaves how I feel about that. Despite my reservations about Tua's health and longevity, I would pick up the 5th-year option. I would. I'm going to be a little bit more hesitant about negotiations for the long-term contract, but you'll cross that road when you get to it. Tua's heading into his 4th year. If you lock in the 5th-year option, you've got 2 more years before you have to really think about whether Tua is your long-term solution or, God forbid, the injury bug gets too much in the way. But I would pick up the 5th-year option. I think that I've seen enough to roll the dice on that. When I look at about a 6-game stretch last year, he played in more than 6 games, but in about a 6-game stretch last year, when Tagovailoa was looking like an MVP candidate and the Miami Dolphins offense was scoring points for fun, like they could not stop scoring. He was in perfect rhythm, perfect sync with his head coach, play caller, perfect harmony with wide receivers like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. If there's even a puncher's chance at recapturing that magic and a puncher's chance, and I think you have better than a puncher's chance, that Tua is not going to have some kind of a long-term concussion syndrome. I think the offseason is going to do him a lot of good in finding a bit of long-term recovery from that. I think if you give me reasonable odds that Tagovailoa can do over a longer period of time what he did for a month and a half at quarterback last year, I have seen enough to pick up the 5th-year option at around $23 million, which in today's quarterback market, that's a freaking bargain. Like, $23 million is like average fringe starting quarterback type of money. I think it's reasonable, and the salary cap is only going up, not down every year. I think it's reasonable to lock in that 5th-year option by May 1st. If I were the Miami Dolphins, I would do it. I'm more hesitant to lock him down to the long-term extension, which you don't have to do right now. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. But the 5th-year option, I think, is a no-brainer. And I'm a little bit puzzled by, you could talk to national media guys, local media guys, and beat writers. It's pretty split down the middle. Who thinks they should pick up the long-term option, the 5th-year option, I should say, and who shouldn't? Now, both the head coach and the GM talked about it. This is what Chris Grier said when asked about concerns over Tua's his durability. Grier said, quote, "I can't lie and say no, but it's not something that's going to make us afraid to do something long-term." Now, first of all, saying I can't lie about being concerned about the durability, that's just honesty. Like, how can anyone not be concerned when Tagovailoa has gone 5 straight years from his final 2 years in college to his first 3 years in the NFL, 5 straight years where he hasn't gotten through a full season healthy at the college level or the pro level. And then the concussions that he suffered this past season are a whole nother thing, because I think big picture wise, you might be a little bit concerned with that than you would be with finger injuries and ankle sprains and that sort of stuff. That the concussions bring a whole nother potential list of long-term issues. So I don't blame Chris Grier for saying, hey, I'm not going to lie to you and say we're not concerned about that. But at the same time, he does obviously seem open to doing something long-term with Tua. But you also You don't want to show your hand too much if you're Chris Grier, because he's going to be, of course, from a Miami Dolphins standpoint, he's the point man in those negotiations, right? Chris Grier is going to spend a lot of time in the coming weeks and in the coming months and years in a room with Tua's agent, and Tua recently switched agencies. So Grier is going to spend a lot of time locked up in a room with Tua's agency, talking about long-term deals. And, if you display those concerns about his long-term health, that puts you in a better bargaining position. So let's remember, it's a negotiation. Grier's not going to come out and say, no, we're not concerned. We want him to be the highest paid quarterback in the league. No, that doesn't do anything for your negotiating position. So, of course, he's going to say, yeah, the health concerns are real and they're there. Now, I thought it was quote-wise even more interesting what Mike McDaniel had to say when he was asked about Tua's fifth-year option. Now, keep in mind, Mike McDaniel, the head coach, he has input, of course, on which guys he thinks should be part of the Dolphins' long-term future and which guys shouldn't. But at the end of the day, it's not his negotiation, really. It's Chris Grier's negotiation. It's also not his money. It's Stephen Ross's money. But still, I thought McDaniel's answer, and if I could share my screen here, and kudos to Josh Houts for tweeting out this video on his account. Make sure you guys follow at Houts on Twitter. And I think you guys should be able to hear this as I can hear it. Here is Mike McDaniel on Tua Tagovailoa's durability and how that factors into the Dolphins picking up his fifth-year option.
Well, I think, like any other player, you factor in every variable. I think, one thing that, when you're talking about those types of decisions, I think it's important to recognize that we have a congruence of interest by the Dolphins and the player, Tua, that we both want, both parties really want him to play at a very high level for a long time for the Miami Dolphins. So what's the best way to really engineer that or to help manifest that? Well, those are the things that we're kind of weighing in terms of the various options with, the same desired end is Tua would like. So you factor in everything as best you can. But that's part of this game that we're all involved in, is there are some unknowns. So you weigh those and you press forward and make the best decision possible for the organization.
Wow, that answer was a minute 54 seconds. How did it take almost 2 minutes to say so little? I mean, I don't know. I guess, like, you talk about a congruency of interest. I think my only real takeaway from what Mike McDaniel said there, it took him a minute 54 seconds. He could have said it in about 4 seconds, is that, we're weighing all of the factors, right, when it comes to the options, right? The option would be, do you not pick up the fifth-year option? Do you pick it up? Do you start talking about long-term deal right away? Or do you just say, we're going to let the fourth year play out and we're just going to assume that we need to treat this guy like an injury liability? It took a minute 54 to say extremely little on that topic. I would imagine that McDaniel, he knows he can't say too much, given, he doesn't want to, undercut the general manager, who's the one who has to negotiate the deal. I'm pretty sure, though, based on the way McDaniel has operated for the past 365 plus days since he took over as Dolphins head coach, and the way he's handled everything Tua, right? From Tua in the media to Tua in practice to Tua dealing with concussions. I believe Mike McDaniel wants to be in the Tua Tagovailoa business. And I believe Mike McDaniel thinks, hopes, and expects that Tua can succeed in the National Football League. Now, at the same time, if we get through another season where Tua can't stay on the field and your backup quarterback, whoever that is this coming season, I don't believe it should be Teddy Bridgewater. And I also don't really think Skylar Thompson's necessarily ready to be the number 2 quarterback for a team where the top quarterback is a bit of an injury liability. But, if Tua can't play all season, and if God forbid backup quarterbacks cost you a playoff spot this coming year, then even McDaniel would have to realize I need to start thinking about taking looks at other quarterbacks who can run my offense. But I don't believe Mike McDaniel feels that they are there yet. I think he wants to be in the Tua Tagovailoa business, and everything that he said over the past year about supporting Tua and believing in Tua, I believe it was sincere. I don't think McDaniel is blowing smoke about that because he doesn't have to go the extra mile and say some of the things he said so far. So you guys let me know in the comments. Do you read anything into what McDaniel said there? Because a lot of people heard that answer and are thinking, ooh, he's being a little wishy-washy on that. That doesn't sound like a guy who wants to invest long-term into it. I think he's being strategically vague in what he's saying. I don't know why it took him a minute 54 to say as little as he said there. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments here on Locked On Canes YouTube, and you can tweet me at Alex Donno. Donno spelled Donno, because honestly, if I were the Dolphins before or on May 1st, I would pick up the fifth-year option for Tua, and then I would see how next season goes before I talk about the long-term extension, because committing for $23 million to Tua Tagovailoa for the fifth year, even if he has more injury concerns, I would still consider that a bargain, okay? Some of the other things that were said and tweeted out by media who were watching that Mike McDaniel interview: Daniel Oyefusi from the Miami Herald, Dolphins general manager Chris Grier on Robert Hunt. He has the potential to be a special player at guard. Yeah, I want to see Robert Hunt scoring more touchdowns, all right? How about this? This is interesting. So the Miami Dolphins, now they don't have a first-round pick this year unless they cut some kind of a crazy deal, which I don't think they'll cut to acquire a first-round pick. But they do have second round, some early round draft picks. Could they consider using even a second round pick on a running back? Okay. Keep in mind, top two running backs from last year, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, are both free agents. Now, the Dolphins will probably bring at least one of them back, if not both of them back. But we had this conversation on the Extra Yard last week with Hussam Patel that I still think they could use fresh legs in the draft and perhaps more of a bell cow type back, which you could probably find in the second round, because teams don't usually, go crazy to draft running backs in the first round. So could that be something the Dolphins are interested in doing? David Furones from the Sun Sentinel tweeted out, Chris Grier said the Dolphins would be open to having Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson back if possible. He also said he could look into drafting a running back in the earlier rounds than he has in the past if a good one is there that Mike McDaniel likes. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is when an NFL GM tells you, I'm open to drafting a running back in the early rounds, he might really be saying, no chance in hell I'm drafting a running back in the early rounds. It is smokescreen season, folks. It is. So, you don't take anything when you're talking about drafting players. I think when you're giving health updates on players and stuff like that, maybe a little bit more sincerity comes through. But if you're asking an NFL GM draft questions on the eve of the combine, don't expect a whole lot of honesty. It is smokescreen season, right? These GMs, it's not in their best interest to be too honest about some of this stuff. I will tell you, though, it's always in the best interest of Prize Picks to be honest. I've had an awesome experience. Let's talk about one of our great sponsors here on the Extra Yard on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that is Prize Picks. Guys, it takes seconds to sign up at prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks mobile app and play these amazing daily fantasy games and win real money. Prize Picks is fully legal in the state of Florida. There's nothing shady about this. It's easy to deposit. It's almost too easy to withdraw your money. Like sometimes I withdraw my money from Prize Picks. I'm like, that's it? Because I've been members of like some in the past offshore sports betting services where you basically gotta you gotta auction your organs in order to get your deposits. Not like that at Prize Picks. Fully legal, domestic, all that good stuff. Prizepicks.com, Prizepicks mobile app. And when you sign up, use our code 5. Spell it out, FIVE. Use our code 5, and they're going to double your first deposit up to $100. So you make your first deposit $100 in. They give you $100 free play money on top of that. And you make these selections, which take a few seconds. You make your selections, you pick players and predict if they're going to go over or under their stat projections, and you win real money if you get all your predictions correct. 2, 3, 4, 5 players. It's like selecting parlays. It's a whole lot of fun. And the great thing about Prize Picks is you can go cross game and even cross sport with this, right? Like if you're looking at a Heat game tonight, you can select a couple players from that game. You can select a couple of NHL players. You can even do NFL scouting combine over-unders, which I'm going to be totally geeking out to. And if you get all your predictions correct, you win real money. So make sure you check it out, Prize Picks mobile app or prizepicks.com with our code 5, F-I-V-E. And you will discover, as I have, that Prize Picks truly is daily fantasy made easy. We are also brought to you by Better Edge, BETTOR edge.com. Sign up with our special URL, betteredge.com/5reasons, and they're going to give you $20 bonus cash just for signing up with our special URL. It's sports betting hacked, okay? It's fully legal in the state of Florida because instead of betting against the house, you're betting against other people. So it's sports betting combined with a social platform. It really is brilliant, okay? You can pick the spreads and the numbers you want at Better Edge as long as you get somebody else on the other end of that number, which is not that difficult to do, honestly. And guys, with Better Edge, there's no hidden fees. Like you're not paying juice to the casino. It's not run by a casino. They make money through advertisers on their website, just like regular commercial websites do. So betteredge.com/5reasons to sign up with $20 of bonus cash. Hello, by the way, to my guy, Cap for Life. Cap, do you think the Dolphins should exercise that 5th-year option for Tua by May 1st? Because I would exercise the 5th year because I think financially it's a bargain, but I would wait on long-term deal negotiations until we see what Tua does in year 4. I would pick up the 5th-year option over the next 2 months, but I would wait before long-term deals until I can see what he does in year 4. That is the way that I would play this. So something else that Chris Grier said, oh, man, how about Byron Jones? He's playing it very close to the vest, is Grier, on Byron, who, he can't run or jump, apparently. But he says he's not retiring. I think he's looking for a release June 1st so that he doesn't owe the Dolphins any money, I think is what he's looking for here. Dolphins GM Chris Grier asked about Byron Jones, said he had a conversation with him and his agent, called their relationship very transparent. Okay, I like that. He added that there's a lot of moving parts regarding whether he'll return to the team in 2023. I can't see it happening, right? Unless Byron is just one of those type of people who just gets so emotional at certain, we've all known people like this, right? Where on like a Monday night, somebody like Byron Jones maybe could write a tweet about how he can't run or jump and do not take the injections, do not take the pills they offer you, do not trust anybody. And then maybe a couple days later, he's like, oh, yeah, I was in a weird mood. I want to play again for you guys. I don't know if something like that's going on, but based on the way those tweets came out from Byron Jones, that first of all, it didn't sound like a guy who wants to play professional football anymore. That's yet to be determined because he told Barry Jackson he's not retiring, but it also doesn't really sound like someone who wants to play for the Miami Dolphins anymore. So I'm not expecting him to be back, but I get it. Grier has to be pretty careful with what he says about that. My guy Cap, I guess he doesn't want to pick up the 5th-year option either. And it would be a risk given to his history. He says, I'm not spending money on a player that gets injured every year. It's going to hinder our team's growth. I think he means growth and not gross. Or maybe he just thinks it's gross, the whole idea of picking up that 5th-year option. My guy Trevor, T from the 203, Donno, we see Byron Jones suing the team doctors like a certain whiteout. I wonder. I think it would be difficult to sue the team doctors because the NFL has so many protocols in place, so many checks and balances regulating the way team doctors practice and attempting at least to take whatever biases the team employed doctors have away from the issue, that unless the Dolphins team doctors were, and I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, I'm just giving you a hypothetical, that unless those doctors were violating NFL protocols, I don't see how that would be suable. But it's an interesting point to bring up because, he certainly doesn't seem happy about those team doctors, kind of like our guy AB was not happy about team doctors, okay? Let's see, anything else interesting that the GM had to say? He says, David Furones tweeted, Grier said the Dolphins would be open to having Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson back if possible. He also, I think we read this one already. He's also looking into drafting a running back in earlier rounds than he has in the past. So another thing I wanted to bring up before we wrap up this episode is, because you guys know that my worlds have collided with this particular story, because I cover the Miami Hurricanes on the daily on Locked On Canes. If you guys have a chance to check out that channel, I put a lot of work into that at Locked On Canes on YouTube, Locked On Canes on all your podcast platforms. And of course, I also cover the Dolphins here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Jason Taylor has been a huge topic of conversation over the past few days because JT, Pro Football Hall of Famer, one of my favorite Dolphins of all time, he has worked the past year on the Miami Hurricanes staff, not in a huge role. He was working as a defensive analyst, which is not very high on the totem pole. And the defensive ends coaching job at the Hurricanes recently came open. A few days ago, Rod Wright, who was coaching the DNs at Miami, accepted a job with the Houston Texans. So the early speculation, I think this was on Sunday that this news came out about Coach Wright. The early speculation was Jason Taylor could get promoted, that JT could become the defensive ends coach for the Hurricanes. But then after that all came out on Sunday, there were these very persistent rumors. And I'm not going to say there were anything more than rumors, but there's a lot of buzz about this from Dolphins folks and Canes folks that Jason Taylor could be offered a job by Mike McDaniel and Vic Fangio to join the Miami Dolphins staff. Okay, so my worlds were colliding with that one. Personally, I understand that if Jason were to be offered a job by the Dolphins, given who he is, it'd be very difficult for him to turn that down. But I also feel like JT is probably more needed in Coral Gables right now, given they have an important vacancy there. And Jason Taylor is very well liked. Miami's defensive ends, they love him. Coach Cristobal likes him a lot. So I feel like he's needed right now more in Coral Gables than he is in Miami Gardens. And according to a report from Barry Jackson from the Miami Herald, it looks like Jason will be staying with the Hurricanes. That Barry tweeted, despite a report about Jason maybe joining the Dolphins staff, that the expectation right now is not only will JT remain with the Hurricanes, but he could be promoted to an on-field role. Now, Barry did not specifically say that that on-field role would be defensive ends coach, but I don't see what else it could be, all right? Especially with that job being open right now. So that's my hope, and it seems to be the expectation of Barry Jackson that Jason Taylor is not going to be leaving the Hurricanes staff, at least not this offseason, and that he's going to get an expanded role with the Hurricanes. And listen, obviously that's relevant to both sides, and maybe if you're a Dolphins and Hurricanes fan, you're very conflicted. Like part of you wants, and listen, guys, for Jason Taylor on the Dolphins staff, that door could open for him at any time, any season, right? Like, I think that's always going to be there. Okay. Like would not surprise me if 2 years, 3 years, hell, even 1 year down the road, if he's wanted by the Miami Dolphins. But, for right now, it seems like Jason is going to take on an expanded role with the Hurricanes. So I think that option could very well be there down the road. Trevor, he says, if Donno talks himself into Carson Wentz as a backup quarterback, don't do it for your mental health. Well, Liz, I'm just glad you said backup quarterback because the Dolphins do need one of those, right? Some people are talking about bringing Teddy Bridgewater back next year. I don't see how you can do that. Like, I don't see how you can bring Teddy back. Because, like, Teddy had one job. Like, his one job was you've got to be healthy when Tua isn't. And he couldn't fulfill that one job, right? So I'm not bringing Ted down. Listen, Carson Wentz has been a disaster in itself. I'm just glad you didn't say talk myself into Carson Wentz replacing Tua, which would be, 3-4 years ago, that would have seen, hey, it's a great idea. This year does not seem like such a good idea. But now Carson Wentz, I do not see him as the reliable type that I would want to be the backup quarterback for my Miami Dolphins. Now, this I would mind a little bit less, Devin. Dolphins should sign Marcus Mariota to compete with Skylar Thompson for the backup job. I would be okay with that because Mariota, he's also had injury issues over the years, but experienced as all hell. He's been around forever. And, that's the sort of veteran like that would be the sort of thing the Dolphins were trying to get out of Teddy Bridgewater. Maybe they could get that out of Mariota. All right, folks. I got to run, so I want to thank everyone for joining in, making this extra yard a part of your day today. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, 5 Reasons Sports. Make sure you subscribe to the audio podcast feed. The 3 Yards Per Carry podcast is nice enough to host the Extra Yard on their feed. So make sure you subscribe to 3 Yards Per Carry. I think the next time I'm on, Troy Stratford will probably be back on with me. So everyone have a great afternoon. Let's go Dolphins right here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. See ya.